Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm going to take another quick look at the Veiled Society as a module. What can we expect during this playthrough? Well, it's clearly going to be very different than playing in a group. The Veiled Society is a mystery and there's really not that much to it, including the clues and solving the mystery. So you might think, well, why play it? How would this have been played in 1984? Well, obviously the party have to solve the mystery, but there is little to nothing given in the description of the city to help you. So it would be the party asking questions like, are there police? Are there guards? Who should we go to? Should we tell Lord so-and-so? Perhaps we need to find a high-level cleric. There'd be a whole series of questions to ask the DM, and the DM in turn would think of answers, and slowly the answers would populate the city. So sitting around the table as a group, it would be a collaborative effort between the players and the DM to create a living city from this empty map. And as I said way back in my first ever session, what daydreaming fantasist doesn't love looking at maps? Most of the evening's pleasure in playing this game will be everybody just inventing a fantasy city between them and bringing it to life. That is clearly not going to happen here because there is no collaborative effort, but also more importantly, most of Specularum these days actually has been created. It looks like this today, and a good deal of this has been populated with named buildings, prominent people and events. And indeed, in the Threshold magazine, the people who appear in the Veiled Society do appear on this map, including certain events, which we will soon be taken into in these buildings here. What does that leave for me then, if the mystery isn't that great and most of the city has been invented? Well, I have rewritten this module greatly. I thought, as I said, the plot isn't that much. It's our first visit to the city, and probably our only one, so I wanted to make more of it. And that kind of contradicts what you might call my mission statement. I have been trying to play these modules as though it were in the 1980s, and I were playing them for the first time. Well, I am playing them for the first time, but today a lot of people rewrite them, mix some parts up with other modules, they change things to suit their playing style. I am trying to keep to the originals as close as possible. This one will be the exception. It will be substantially added to. It won't be completely rewritten. If you know this game, or maybe you are reading it as I go through it, you will recognise a lot of these events. They will appear, but I have added a lot more, and that is my introduction. Let's see how the party get on. Liz and Silvia go back to their inn. The boys return to theirs. Each will have to see if they can get a table for dinner tonight. It ought to be quieter in the mid-afternoon, but it is still busy with overspill from the festival. They go upstairs. When they enter their room, they can see a figure standing by the little attic window. A small figure standing on a chair. He has a long pipe hanging out of his mouth, and the pipe in turn is hanging out of the window. Puffs of some sweet-smelling weed smoke get carried away by the breeze. He turns around at the sound of the door opening. "A roommate," laughs Carrick. "A good halfling. Good afternoon, sir." The halfling steps down off the chair, pipe in mouth, and takes a small bow. "Rowan," he introduces himself. "Rowan Blackthorn, at your service." The party introduce themselves. "Don't let us disturb your pipe," says Donard, wafting away the smoke and nodding to the window as a hint. "Ah, forgive me," says the halfling. He removes the pipe from his mouth and he knocks out the smouldering weed by hitting the bowl of the pipe against the heel of one raised foot. Then he uses that heel to trample the embers into the floor. "All better." "Are you here for the festival?" asks Malin. "I am indeed," says the halfling, "and I also have many friends within the city that I owe a visit and a beer. Are you here for the festival yourself?" "This is our first visit," says Malin. "We didn't know there was a festival. Certainly busy." "Ah, it's not always like this," says Rowan. "It will die down in a couple of days, and I'm sure you'll find it a dull and boring place in comparison." He shoves the pipe back into his mouth. He grabs each of the lapels of his jerkin with a hand just above the buttons. "Who am I to visit this evening?" he says out of the side of his mouth. He flaps his elbows a couple of times like a bird. "I'm so forgetful. I'm sure I'll remember when I'm on the street and I have to decide whether left or right." "Don't let us keep you, Master Halfling," says Carrick. "I hope one night you'll join us for a drink and tell us of the city." "I hope so too," says Rowan Blackthorn. "I'll be on my way and I'll see you later." And the little halfling marches out of the bedroom. Right, so the boys have met their roommate, and he seems quite a character. I wonder if we'll see more of him. What are we going to do for eating this evening? The girls have tried to book a table in their inn, but it's far too busy. The boys are trying to do the same. They have got a table, and they're about to go and tell Silvia and Liz to come back to this inn. The guys are in the Duke's League Inn, and Liz and Silvia are in the Splinter Diamond Inn. But as the sun sets and the city gets darker, things begin to happen. Now what happens? Now while the guys are waiting in the common room of their inn, let's read. The citizens have finally slowed their celebration of the festival, although it has taken much time, food and strong drink. From nearby, in this smoky common room, comes a loud, tipsy voice. A scarred man points. "Hey, you there, you want some work? Sit here and drink. I need strong bodies. Theseus is my name. You look brave. Do you want to earn money?" Donard, Malin and Carrick do go over and ask what kind of work, and he's a bit vague, but he does say he works for powerful people. Sometimes they need some strong arms to do some work, but it's generally honourable work. Party shrug and say, "Okay, we'll help you." But this guy, Theseus, doesn't have any work at the minute. He just wants to know who is in town who will be up for it. He gets up and leaves. We go over to the barman and ask who was that, and the barman says that Theseus is a carpenter and he normally works for the Toronescu family. He is indeed considered a decent person. Okay, well, that was a rather inconsequential event. But what happens outside the tavern here, which is the Splintered Diamond, where Silvia and Liz are staying? Well, they're hanging around the street corner, waiting for one of the guys to come up and tell them it's time to come for dinner. We've got a table. And as they're waiting, let's read what happens to them. Outside the inn, a man walks by. He lurches drunkenly along. He smiles and nods as he passes. Suddenly, 3 hooded men step out of the shadows and the drunken man turns around. None of the men carry weapons openly. "So you're new to town, eh?" asks the drunken man, who now appears quite sober. "You look like you need some work. We have some things that need to be done, and you look fairly smart. I'm sure you would want to help us." "You staying here?" he asks, pointing at the inn. "Be a real good idea if you didn't leave for a while. We'll see you tomorrow night. Here, catch." He throws a small bag. With that, the men slip into the shadows and run away. Bag contains 20 gold pieces. Right. Now there is really nobody hanging around here to ask what was that all about. In fact, people seem to have put their heads down and have scurried away. The bag of money, 20 gold, that's quite a lot of money. But as Silvia says to Liz, "I think we've just been bought, even though we weren't in the market for this." That's rather perplexing, but anyway, Malin goes up the street, collects Silvia and Liz, and they go back to the Duke's League Inn and gather around the table discussing what has happened to both of them. It seems like the guys got the better deal. At least they were offered the opportunity of work, should they want it, whereas Silvia and Liz seem to have been roped into something by a really dodgy character. So, what an interesting start to the evening. Can it get any different? Well, yes, actually. If what happened to Silvia and Liz seemed like a bizarre, unexpected thing to happen, guess what happens next? Right, it says here it is morning at the inn. It isn't. This is evening. It doesn't make a difference. A cat stalks something in the corner of the room. The innkeeper's daughter is serving tables. In the back comes the clicking of dishes and the splashing of water. There will be the sounds of other people eating. Suddenly the door swings open and an elderly lady frantically looks about. "Please, some kind sir, come quick to help me," she pleads, panic overcoming her. She looks about for anyone to answer her. "Oh, save me! There are demons in my house. I know it. I hear them at night, talking to each other. They want to catch me. Please," she says, falling to her knees. The innkeeper runs in, kneels beside the old woman, and tries to comfort her. "Goodwife Thanato," he says, sounding concerned. "What are you doing? Sit down proper." He turns, saying, "Can anyone help this poor old woman? Could anyone look in her cellar to find the problem?" The DM is told here, if the party does not ignore the hysterical woman, she clings to them and tells her story. If the party do ignore her, the innkeeper threatens to blacken their name throughout the city, spread rumours they are heartless dogs, and he will throw them into the street and nobody else will give them a room. Okay, well, we're not going to refuse, so we don't have to experience that threat. We're just going to ask the woman, "What on earth do you mean, demons in your cellar?" She just repeats her same story, that she can hear voices in her cellar and they are talking. It's not just rats squeaking. We've nearly finished up, so we'll buy this woman a strong drink. She can sit and calm her nerves, and then she can take us to her house and let's help her with the problems in her cellar. Right, the party are in their inn here and they've just finished their dinner and they want to go and help this goodwife Thanatos. The issue is, however, they don't have any weapons, so they're going to ask the old woman to wait there for a minute while they go up to their room and look for something. Malin has several daggers. He has a dagger +2, plus a couple of daggers he uses to throw with. He's going to donate his dagger +2 to Silvia and give a dagger to Liz. Keep one. They can easily conceal those. Carrick has a small hand axe +1, which he is going to put into his belt but under his tunic. It does stick out a bit weird. Donard, however, is a bit stuck. His warhammer is too big and there isn't anything he can use as a blunt alternative. He shrugs and maybe thinks, well, I'll find a bit of broken wood, like a chair leg, that I can use later. But they are wearing their armour. There doesn't seem to be any rules against wearing armour in the streets. In fact, because it's a festival, a lot of people, maybe they're ex-military, or maybe they are other adventurers, actually seem to be flaunting their armour. We're here, and that's the equivalent of here. The old woman Thanatos lives here, which is up this street essentially, and that means here. This is the street that borders the old quarter and Bricktop, and we walk up it. As I've said before, this encounter is part of the canon of Specularum. We have labelled here B30 Goodwife Thanatos. She lives up this little street here, and that's her house there. We go in and she points to the cellar. She's in a right state. We bought her a drink to calm her nerves. It started to wear off the closer we get to her house. She points to her cellar and says, "The voices, oh, they're in there." And we go down. Now let's read. What do we find? Right, we're here. At the bottom of the ladder is a dry dirt cellar, bags of grain piled against the walls and cobwebs fill the corners. A sack of dried apples spilled across the floor, and squeaking and scratching noise comes from the southeast corner. Right, well, that implies rats. We can investigate the southeast corner. We find another sort of semi-cellar, and we find a bag of grain which has been eaten by rats. A clattering noise and a whispery sound fill the room, but there is no apparent source. We're going to keep quiet, and I'll have Liz do a listen roll. Yes, she listens, and she can identify the source as coming from the northwest, which is this little crack here. We move up this little single file crack, and we come to this little room. This small side passage reeks of foul odour. The walls are slimy and oozing. A sudden scraping noise is followed by a loud wet plop. A wave of sulphurous fumes fill the passage. The characters find themselves knee-deep in rotting, runny garbage from an inn. An old cistern above the room has collapsed. There's now a hole in the ceiling where it once was. In other words, we're underneath the toilet of an inn. I will look just briefly if there is an inn. Or B16. Yes, it's probably the Rattlebone Inn. Okay, right. That's the toilets of the Rattlebone Inn. Have collapsed and we've just waded through it. We're going to go up here, and the noises get louder as we go up this corridor here. Malin is holding the lamp, and he shudders it for a bit at the suggestion of Silvia and Carrick because they have infravision. However, it's not necessary because when we shutter the lantern, lo and behold, we see a glow coming from here, and we can hear distinct voices talking, but we can't hear what they're actually saying. It could just be two people in their own cellar going about their own business, and this good wife could be completely paranoid. We have no real reason to charge in and attack, but I think we'll go cautiously with our hands on our weapons. And we'll go north, and what do we see here? A light wooden panel covers a dimly lit cellar. The air is dry and smells of meats. Cured hams and sausages hang from the beams. In the centre of the cellar, two hooded men busily dig up the floor. A large bundle lies nearby. Well, this cellar is obviously a step up from the good wife's cellar. It sounds much more classy. Come on, says one man. I think this is deep enough. Let's get it buried and go. No, says the second man. I want to make it deeper. Nobody can ever find this but us. If the men are not disturbed, they dig a little hole and load the bundle into the hole. They fill the hole with dirt. That is, if they are not disturbed. If the players reveal themselves, the two men attempt to flee. There is indeed a ladder up to a closed trapdoor. Well, it looks like they're acting a bit suspicious, especially when they see us and they make a dash for the ladder. Right, I am going to try and have Donard and Carrick see if they can wrestle one of them or both of them. So Carrick is going to try and rush forward and wrestle one. Donard is going to try and wrestle the other. That's the first round. The second round, Silvia and Liz can join in and help. Now, there are wrestling rules. I believe they're in the companion set. What you do is you take half the character's level and you add their armor class to it. Obviously, the lower the armor, the better the roll, and if that sounds counterintuitive, it's because the less armor you wear, the more able you are to wrestle. Carrick and Donard are in plate mail, and they have a shield, and that sums up to armor class 2. You ignore any magical bonuses for rings or magic armor or shields, because you're talking about the maneuverability rather than the defensiveness, and you also add strength and dex bonuses. Carrick has a strength and a dex of +1 and +2. That gets added to his 4, and that's a 7. Donard has a +1 and a -1 for dex and strength. They cancel each other. Half his level is 2, his AC is 2, that's 4. He gets a 4 wrestling bonus. Carrick gets a 7. And these two guys, it doesn't say they have a strength or dex bonus, but they have an AC of 7, and half their level is 2. So their wrestling scores are 9 each. And what you do is you simply roll two 20-sided dice for both characters, the attacker and the defender. You add the wrestling scores onto the total. Then you see, did they get grabbed? Have they been taken down? So as usual, green is the enemy. So I'm going to roll for Carrick. He gets a 7 bonus. The person he is trying to grab gets a 9 bonus. Wow, and that's both exactly the same score. Both scored 19. That means nothing happened. This character is a thief. He is free and he stays free. He actually can make it to the ladder. What about Donard? No, he scores 9 altogether and his opponent scores 20. So he makes it to the ladder and he's the first up there. I don't think there's room for lots of people to gather and grab one of these people, but one character is on the ladder and he's working the trapdoor. The second one is at the bottom of the ladder trying to get up it. And when 2 or more people wrestle, you add a +4 bonus. Donard and Carrick. Carrick 7 becomes an 11. Let's see if they can grab the second thief. No. Altogether, 11 plus 4 is 15, and the thief's 8 plus 9 is 17. First thief makes it up the ladder. The second one is on the ladder. He probably kicks at Carrick and Donard, and he is still free. He is halfway up the ladder, and indeed his accomplice has opened the trapdoor and is nearly through it. The second thief obviously doesn't have to open that trapdoor. One last attempt to grab a leg. I'm not going to apply the +4 bonus because you can't fit 2 people onto a ladder. And no, that's again a failure. Those thieves get away. Donard and Carrick can scamper up the ladder after them, and Silvia, Liz and Malin can look at this bundle. Now these thieves are quite fast, obviously. By the time the guys get up to the ladder, they find themselves in a very fine house. The front door is open, and footsteps of the thieves running into the street can be heard. They've gotten away. 2 guys climb down the ladder, and what have the others found? The others have found inside that bundle that was going to be buried is the body of a young woman, and she has been murdered. And that is where we will end it today.